Hey, what's going on, guys? So in this video, we're going to create a RESTful API using Laravel 5.5, and we're going to be using the API resources that shipped with version 5.5. So this is fairly new, a few months or whenever 5.5 was released, and I find this really interesting. I haven't really used it before today. I've just been researching it today, so this is going to be kind of an off-the-cuff type of video. But we're going to create a full CRUD API using these API resources. So they're basically kind of like templates for your response. Okay, so when you send out a response from your API, you can format your data in a certain way, and you can add other information along with the data. You can get pagination links and metadata, conditional attributes and relationships. So it really allows you to map out your API responses. Okay, so to generate a resource, you just need to use an Artisan command of make resource. And if we look down here, this is basically what it creates: a resource file with a class and then a method called toArray. And in that method, it returns all the data, and you can format this however you want. So if you don't want these created at and updated at, you can simply get rid of them. Or if you want to format, let's say, your name to be the first name and last name fields in your database, you could set this to this first name and then concatenate this last name and so on. So you can basically just format your data very, very easily. All right, and then to use it in your controller or in your routes, you just say return new and then your resource name, and then you pass in whatever user or whatever the resource is that you want to return. Now, if you're returning more than one, like a list of users, that's a collection. So you would say return user resource collection and then all your users. So it's as easy as that. And then down here, let me just show you everything. All of your data is going to be wrapped inside of this data array here. And then in addition to that, you'll have links. So you'll have your pagination links, first, last, previous, next. And you'll also have metadata. So this is also helpful for pagination. You have the current page, last page, you have how many resources per page. So this is very, very helpful, not only for the back-end API developer, but also for the front-end developer that's building the React application or Angular application that's working with this API. They'll easily be able to create pagination, which has always been kind of a pain in the ass for me. And this makes it very easy. So this is really interesting to me, and I really want to build something with it. So we're just going to build a simple articles API where we can create, read, update, and delete articles and use these API resources. All right, now as far as my environment, I'm using XAMPP, which is gives us an Apache server, MariaDB, which is basically a drop-in for MySQL, in PHP, and this is completely cross-platform, so you can use it on Windows, Mac, or Linux. You also need Composer installed, which is a dependency manager for PHP. This is how we're going to install Laravel. All right, guys, we're doing this from absolute scratch, so I have nothing prepared. That's how I like to do it. I don't like to just start a tutorial right in the middle where I already have something created and you guys don't know, where the hell I'm at. So if you want to follow along, you can do that. Just make sure you install XAMPP and Composer. All right, so I have my terminal open here. I'm using git bash, and I'm in my htdocs, which is basically my web root. And I'm going to go ahead and just I'm going to create a new Laravel project by just saying composer create project. I'm going to add the prefer dist flag and then specify that I want this to be a Laravel application by saying Laravel, and then the name, which I'll just call this, we'll just call it L articles, or Larticles, I guess. All right, now this is not an intro to Laravel type video. If you're brand new to Laravel, I would highly suggest watching my Laravel from Scratch series on YouTube. It's on YouTube, it's free. And we start from scratch and I explain everything as we move along. In this video, I'm not going to so much explain, the basics of Laravel. We're just going to be kind of just explaining the API resources and stuff to do with the API. I'm not going to like explain the folder structure of Laravel or anything like that. All right, so that's all set. So I'm going to cd into L, L articles, or larticles, and let's open up Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to do code dot. Of course, you can use whatever text editor you want if you're following along. And we have our project over here. Now we're going to have to set up a virtual host. If I go ahead and I open up a browser, let's just open up a browser real quick and go to localhost / what did I call it? Larticles. Oops. Localhost / larticles / public. I might have to restart Apache actually, so let me just stop and start Apache. Okay, so Laravel is in the public folder of L articles, so I'm going to create a virtual host to go to larticles.test. So the way that we do that is we need to edit two files. One is the vhost file in Apache. So you need to go to wherever Apache is. In my case, it's in XAMPP, Apache, and then you want conf, extra, and then it's this vhost.conf. And I'm just going to open that with Sublime Text because that's a default. And then go down here, and we basically just want to copy one of these entries and just paste it in, create a new one. And we're going to get rid of these number signs here because those are basically just comments. And then all we need in between here is the document root and the server name. All right, we're going to remove these. And then the document root will be L articles / public. And then the server name that I want to use is L articles.test. And save. Okay, so we can close that up. And then the other file that we need to edit is the host file. Now, to edit it, we need to open Notepad. If you're on Windows, we're going to open Notepad as administrator. Now, my taskbar is off screen, so what I did is I just typed in Notepad, and I'm going to right-click and choose Run Administrator. It's important to actually run it as administrator, or you won't be able to save your host file. So once it's open, we'll go to File, Open, and you want to navigate to your C drive if you're on Windows, and then the Windows folder, System32, drivers, etc, and then just choose all files and you'll see your host file. Okay, and then we just want to edit this by putting in our local host, our loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1, and then just put in that domain that we put in, our server name, which was larticles.test, and save. All right, so now we just need to restart Apache. So I'm going to just stop it through my XAMPP panel, start again. If you're using a real LAMP stack on, let's say, on Ubuntu or something like that, just go ahead and type in the command to restart Apache. You guys know what you're doing. And then we can just go to L articles.test. HTTP L articles. Always do that. And there we go. So now we have our Laravel site up and running on this domain or this server name. So the next thing we want to do is create our database. So since I'm using XAMPP, I'm going to use phpMyAdmin. So that'll be available at localhost / phpMyAdmin. We're using MySQL. You could use a different database if you want, but it's, if you want to follow along exactly, then you're going to be using MySQL or MariaDB. So if we click databases, I'm going to create a new one called L articles. And that's it. We're not going to create any tables or anything. That'll be done through migration files. All right, so now what we need to do is configure our database. So we're going to go to the .env file in Laravel, go to the MySQL section and put in our database name. We're going to put in the username of the database, which in my case I'm using the root user, and then my password, okay, whatever your password is, and save. All right, so now we have our database set up. Now I'm going to open up my integrated terminal in VS Code. And the first thing we want to do is create a migration. Okay, so we're going to be creating an articles table, and we're also going to be using seeds and factories to generate some dummy data. So let's go ahead and create the migration. So we'll say PHP artisan, and we want to do make migration, and we're going to say create underscore articles underscore table, and then we just want to do dash create equals articles. All right, so let's run that. And then if we look in database migrations, you'll see the default users table and password resets table. Those are included by default, and then the one that we just created. Now for fields, by default we have an ID in our timestamp fields, but I also want to add in a title and a body. So I'm going to say table, let's do table string for the title, and then let's do table text for the body. Okay, really simple schema. So we'll save that and close that up. Now one thing I want to do before we move on is, since we're using XAMPP with MariaDB, we're going to have an issue when we try to create our model, or I'm sorry, when we try to run our migration, because of the length of the string. So to fix that, we need to go into the app folder, into providers, and then app service provider. So I was actually hoping that this would be fixed with version 5.5, because this was happening in 5.4, but unfortunately it's not fixed. So what we need to do is we need to bring in the schema package. So we're going to say use Illuminate, which is basically Laravel support / facades / schema, like that. And then we need to go down into the boot function, and we need to say schema : default string length, and we're going to set that to 191. So that'll prevent the length error from happening. So that's it. We don't have to come back in here. So we'll close that up. And now what we'll do is create our sample data. So we're going to use a seed. You can see we have this folder called seeds. It has a database seeder, but we want to actually generate an articles table seeder. So we're going to go ahead and say PHP artisan make seeder, and we're going to say articles table seeder. All right, so we'll go into that file, and what we want to do here is go into the run function, and we're going to say factory, and in here we want app / articles class, and then the number of articles we want to create. So let's say we want to create 30 of them. So then we just need to say create. All right, and that's it. We'll save that file. We'll close that up, and then we're going to go into, let's see, we're going to go into the database seeder file now. And you'll see this commented out. They have this call and then users table seeder. We're not actually dealing with the users table, so what I'm going to do is uncomment this and change this to articles table seeder. Okay, and we'll save that. And then we'll close that up, and then we need to have a factory for our articles. So we can generate a factory by saying PHP down here in the terminal, PHP artisan make factory, and we're going to say article factory. All right, so now if we look over in our files under database factories, you'll see article factory, and this is where we can basically format our data, or our fake data. So all I want here is I want to generate a title. So we'll take Faker, let's use text, and we'll say 50 is words, the number of words. So we'll say a 50, no, I'm sorry, not words, letters or characters. So 50 characters, and then the body, let's say Faker text, and let's do 200. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. Close that up. Alright, so now what we want to do is create our model. I'm going to try to clear this, which never works. For some reason lately in VS Code, I don't know if it's a Windows issue or what, but if I do Control L or try to do clear, it just messes up. So I have to just scrap the terminal and open a new one. If anyone knows why that happens, please let me know. Alright, so we want to create our model now. So we're going to say PHP Artisan. I know this is a lot of setup, but I wanted to do it from scratch. So let's say make model article. Okay, so model was created. Now what we want to do is run the migrations. So you can see we have these 3 migration files that need to be run. So we'll say PHP make PHP Artisan make, not make, migrate. Okay, so that should have created the tables. Now we want to add our seed data, so we do that by saying PHP Artisan DB :seed. What is this? Class app articles not found. Why did I do that? Actually, I think I know why I did that. Oh, I was going to say because I put articles table, factory. Yeah, you know what? This should be article right here, not articles. Let's try that again. Unable to locate factory with the name article. Wait a second. Factory article. All right, so let's look in article factory, and oh, right here. This should be app/article. All right, let's try it again. Third time's a charm. Good. So that should have went all right. So let's check our database. So I'm going to open up phpMyAdmin. Let's go to our database and go to articles. And there we go. We have 30 articles. All right. It's limited to 25, but we actually have 30. Okay. And we have some sample text for the title and body. We have ID, created at, and updated at. All right. So now that we have our data, we need to create our controller and routes. So I'm going to just scrap this terminal and get a new one, because for some strange reason I can't clear it. Let's close these up, and let's go ahead and say PHP Artisan. We're going to do make controller article controller, and let's say -- resource. Now we're doing the resource so that it automatically creates the index method, the show, store, things like that. So we'll go ahead and run that. Let's take a look at it. So we'll go in app, HTTP, controllers, article controller, and you can see we have our index, create, store, show, edit. We're not going to be using all of these, but I did want some of them. All I want is index. I don't want create. I want store. I want show. I don't want edit. I don't even want update. We're going to use store for creating and updating. And I do want destroy. So yeah, those 4. All right, so now let's save this and let's go to our routes. So we need to go to the routes folder and we're going to go to the api.php. So we're going to create our routes. So we need one to list the articles. So this will be route. It'll be for a GET request to articles, and it's going to call the article controller, and it's going to be the index method. Okay, next one will be to list single article. I'll just copy this. So this will be for, article / ID, and this will call the show method. Okay, next we want one to create new article. So this will be article, but it will be a post request, and that's going to go to store. Okay, we also want one to update, and that'll also go to store, except it's going to be a put request. Okay, and finally we want one to delete article, and that's going to be article controller destroy, and that'll be a delete request. Alright, so those are our routes. So let's save this. And now it's time to create our resource. So we can close up our routes. We'll leave the controller open because we have some work to do there. But let's create a resource. So this is basically the reason we're doing this. So to do it, we'll say PHP artisan make resource article. Alright, so what that did is it created inside the HTTP folder, you'll see a resources folder and then an article.php. So if we look at this file, this has that to array. Now this by default is just going to return everything, so I'm going to leave this for now, and let's go to our controller and go to our index. Alright, so in the index, let's go ahead and grab some articles. So we'll create a variable and we'll set this to our article model, which we're going to have to bring in, but we'll say article, let's do paginate. Let's get 15 of them like that, and then we're going to return the collection of articles as a resource. And we do that by saying return article resource, which we're also going to have to bring in, and then collection. Remember, in the documentation, if you're returning a list of items, of resources, you need to use a collection. And then we'll pass in the articles. And that's it. So let's go up here and bring in what we need. So we need to bring in our model. So app / articles, or I'm sorry, article, and then the resource. So use app / http / resources. Now it's called article, but since our model is called article, I'm going to say as article resource, like that. And I believe we need to bring in the HTTP requests as well. So that's from app / http / requests. Alright, so let's save this, and we should be able to now make a request. Now you could use your browser if you want for the GET request, but I would suggest using Postman, which is just an awesome program for making requests to APIs. I'm just going to close this thing out. And then we're going to make sure this is a GET request to http larticles.test /API /articles. Okay, we'll send that. And there we go. So this is what it gives us. I'm going to just maximize this. So as you can see, we have this data array with all of the different articles. Okay, so it should be 15 because we set it to paginate 15. Now under the data, we automatically have links for pagination. We have first, last, previous, and next. We have the metadata with the current page, the last page. So basically it's telling us there's going to be 2 pages. We have 15 per page. Okay, we have the total, which is 30. So this is all stuff that will now be available to your front end when you're connecting to this API. Now, let's say that we don't want to return like the created at and updated at. So what we could do is we could customize our resource. So I'm going to just comment this out right here. This is the resource file. And we're going to just return. Put some brackets in here, and let's say we just want the ID. Actually, it should be in quotes. So we want the ID, this ID, we want the title, this title, and we want the body, this body. And save. Let's go back to Postman and let's send the request, and there we go. So now notice all of our data only has the ID, the title, and the body. So we can format this absolutely however we want, and that's why I said it's kind of like a template. It's basically an API response template. All we had to do in the controller is simply return this one line, and then we can just format this how we want, which I think is pretty damn cool. Now, if you're not a back-end developer and you don't really understand creating APIs and all that, and maybe you just do front-end React stuff and you just connect to APIs, this is pretty powerful to get the pagination and all of that and be able to format this so easily. It's a pretty powerful thing for a back-end developer or a full-stack developer. All right, now next thing I want to do is add to the show method. So the show is going to be for an individual resource. All right, so let's see, we want to get a single article. So create a variable, and we'll set it to the article model. We're going to use find or fail, and we'll pass in the ID. Now this ID right here is coming from our route. When we created our routes, I know a lot of you guys know this stuff, but when we created our routes, we have /ID, so that's where that's coming in. So once we get that article, what we want to do is return the single article as a resource. And we do that by saying return new article resource and pass in the article. All right, so now we'll save that. We'll go to Postman, and let's make a request to article, so singular / let's do 3, and send. And there we go. So we get that one article of the ID of 3. Now notice it's wrapped in this data object. Okay, that it's going to be like that by default. Now, if you don't want this data object, then what you can do is you can use that without, without wrapping, I believe. Let me go back to the documentation. So let's see. Where is it? Where did I see it? Right here. So it's actually in the app service provider. That's where we did that weird thing with the boot function. But what we'll do is you bring in this JSON resource and then just do resource without wrapping. So I guess we can just try this out. So we'll just grab that. And let's go to app providers, app service provider, and we'll just throw that in there. And then in the boot, we can simply do resource without wrapping. All right, we'll save that. Let's go back to Postman and let's do the send. Okay, looks like something happened here. I forgot the W. Without wrapping. And there we go. So now you can see there's no data object. It's just this one object with the value. All right, now I'm going to take that off. I'm going to actually just comment those two lines out because I want to show you something else, and we can't have this here for it to work. So let's save that. And I want to show you that if we go back to the resource and under the to array here, we create a new function called with, and then that takes in a request, and then we can add other stuff with the data. Okay, so we want to return, and in here let's do version 1.0.0. so you can do absolutely anything you want in here. Let's do author URL, and we can use the URL helper. Go traversymedia.com, and yeah, we'll just do that and then save, and then let's go back to Postman and let's send, and there we go. So now we have our data object, and then in addition to that we have the version, we have the author URL, so you could add whatever you want in here. Excuse me. And you can do like all types of stuff with relationships if you have related data. Again, I'm not sure if I showed you guys this in the beginning. I planned to, but I don't know if I did. The JSON API spec. So this is a specification for building APIs in JSON. So it can get kind of complicated, but it has the data, it has links for pagination, it has all your relationships. This example has articles with or blog posts. What is it? Articles? Yeah, with comments, with people, and it shows all the relationships. So this is like a standard for JSON APIs, and you could create something like this with Laravel. In fact, there's a pretty cool article on Medium right here, using Laravel 5.5 resources to create your own JSON API formatted API. So this actually, yeah, right here. So this is what we just looked at here. And this article, it gives you the gist of how to create something like this with API resources in Laravel. It doesn't give you everything you need in the article, but if you go down to the very bottom, there's and I'll put this in the description, there's a GitHub link for the entire application. And if we look in resources, not that resources, where the hell is it? App, HTTP resources. Look at all this: articles, relationship resources, author identifier resource. So this can get pretty complicated. I'm just basically just showing you the basics. All right, but you can do a lot more. You can do stuff like this. All right, so let's see. So what I want to do now is just finish up our API. I want it to be a full CRUD API. So we're going to go back to the controller, and let's go to the store. And what we're going to do here is say article equals request, and we want to check the method. So we'll say if is, I probably should have got a Laravel extension for VS Code before this tutorial, is method put. So we're going to check for a put request. Let's see, and we'll say article find or fail, and we're going to pass in request article underscore ID. So basically, if it's a put request, we're going to have to include an article ID field. Else, then we're just going to create a new article. All right, and then down here, we're just going to specify article ID equal to request input, and this will be the article ID. Oops, am I stuck? Let's see, what else? Well, actually, we'll just copy this. All right, so we get the ID, we get the title. So this will be input title, body. And yeah, I think that's it. So we don't need this one. Okay, so then after we do that, we just want to say if article save, then let's just return the resource. So we'll say article resource and pass in the article. Okay, so that's the store, and then the destroy is going to be very similar to the show, so let's just copy the show and destroy. So we're going to get the article initially, and then we're just going to wrap this in an if. So it's going to be if we want to delete it, so article delete. And let's make sure that we wrap this. Okay, so that should do it. Let's go ahead and save, and let's test the rest of this API. So we're going to go back to Postman. I'm going to open up a new tab, and we're going to make a post request. Actually, let's do a delete first. So we'll delete HTTP L articles.test slash article, I'm sorry, API slash article slash, let's do 2. So that's a delete request, and let's send. What is this? Method not allowed. Did I do that right? L articles.test API article 2. Let's check the routes. Route delete articles. Oh, you know what? These, the update and the delete should be singular, should be article. The only one with the S should be this one here, the index. And then for the delete, I actually forgot the ID, so it should be slash ID because it's just looking at article. It needs to know which one to delete. So let's save that, and then that should work. So we'll go ahead and try again. And there we go. So it gives us back the deleted article. Now, 2 should not exist anymore. So if I go to make a GET request to API slash articles send, you'll see it goes from 1 to 3. There's no more 2. And if we want to double check and go to the database and reload, you can see there's no more number 2 article. So the delete works. Let's try to add one. So I'm going to open up a new tab, make a post request to HTTP L articles.test slash API slash article. And let's see, we're going to go to headers. I'm going to add a content type of application slash JSON, go to body, and I'm going to add raw data, so raw JSON. So JSON should have double quotes around the keys and values. So let's change, or let's add a title of test title and a body. of test body. Send that. There we go, and you can see it has the ID of 31 because initially we had 30 of them. And if we go back to this endpoint here of articles and send and go down, well, actually this is paginated so it won't show, but if we go to our database, let's see, database, reload, and there it is, 31, test title, test body. All right, so last one to check is the update, the put request. So I'll go ahead and let's just copy this endpoint, open up a new tab, and let's do a put. And for headers, we want the content type as application JSON. And then for the body, I'll put in raw JSON. And remember, this actually needs an article underscore ID field that we want to update. So let's update article 4. And we'll say title, title, updated, or updated title, body. All right, so let's try that. Same endpoint, send. Okay, we get that back. Let's go to the articles endpoint and send, and go up to 4, and there it is, updated title, updated body. So we now have a complete CRUD API, and we're using the Laravel 5.5 API resources. All right, so hopefully you found this tutorial helpful and you guys will use this. Laravel is a fantastic framework. Even if you don't like PHP, it's just a very elegant framework. And this, I like it to build APIs, but this made it a lot more enjoyable. So thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, please leave it a like. If you are not subscribed and you like these types of videos, please subscribe. And that's it. I will see you next time. Hey guys, if you've been watching my videos for a while and you really like what I do and I've helped you out a lot, consider becoming a patron. Even for $1 per month, it pushes me to keep bringing you guys the best content I possibly can. There's reward tiers for discounts, free Udemy courses, personal support, and more. So check out the Patreon link in the description below for more info.